Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Abe with MysticGenMara.com, a small town mystic from the middle of Idaho. And tonight, whenever you happen to be seeing this, I would like to just have a little discussion about this upcoming full moon. And this is the last video in my full February, so there's a lot of content out there if you're interested to check it out. But today, when this one goes live, it'll be the 28th of February, so it's the last day of the month. And we're right up on the full moon for March. It's about 3 days away. It's on the 3rd of March. So that would be kind of a nice time to get a little preparation for what energies are coming in here. The full moon will be at its apex on the around 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 3rd. So you can adjust your time frames accordingly. This particular full moon in March is called the worm moon. Which sounds a little slimy and gross personally, but it actually has some basic reasons for its name. The main one is this was a time when winter would be loosening its hold on the land, and earthworms would start to poke their heads up. And if you've ever been outside after a rainstorm, worms are everywhere. So think, as the water is melting from the snow going down, the worms are like, I need to breathe, so they come up. And it's also a time when you usually will start seeing the robins starting to pop up. The little birds with the red bellies, you know. And in my neck of the woods, they've been here for about 2 weeks already, so that's a little a little alarming. But it's a really good sign of spring. So the earth starts to reawaken from its wintry slumber, and life begins to return at this time of the year. The wheel of the year rolls on towards the spring equinox, which is the beginning of spring, around the 21st of March traditionally. And I'm a traditionalist, so that's the day we're going with. If you are in the farther north area, from like planting zone 3 or further north, this is a moon where you want to start planting your long season crops indoors to be transplanted outdoors later. And that's things like tomatoes, a lot of your peppers. Sometimes you'll start some of your long season squashes inside. When we were growing up, this would be around the same time we'd start broccoli and cauliflower and all these other things that, you know, take 100 days or better to raise. Well, growing up, we would start them usually towards the end of February, first part of March, around this particular full moon. And so if you're in the southern areas, zone 4 or further south, you can actually start going out into your gardens and you start seeing what you're going to need. Like, do you need new hedges? Do you need that one trimmed up? Do you need that place plowed? Because of the way the temperatures are. But this is a time of preparation for the coming growth season is what we're looking at here. Another name for this moon is the sugar moon, because this is when the sap starts to run in the maple trees, and so you'd start tapping for the sap that we would boil down later on to make syrup out of. And so there's a couple of fun names here we're going to zip through real quick. Other names are the sore eye moon, which I have to say is actually really entertaining. And if you've been out in the snow a lot, and especially when the sky is clear and the sun's reflecting off of it, and you walk around because you can't see anything, you can have sunglasses on and you still squint like that. That's why they would call it the sore eye moon, because it's the brilliance of the sun. Because normally by the end of February, not always, but normally you start getting less cloudy days because the seasons are shifting. So the sun reflects, way more intensely on the snow at that time. We also have the wind strong moon, which is I just lost the name of the winds. The warmer winds that come down from the north this time of the year. And you'll go for 4 or 5 days where the wind just doesn't stop. And it's a consistent Chinook. That's what I was looking for. You'd have these massive winds, and they're generally pretty warm, but they just don't stop for like 4 or 5 days. Everything gets blown around. Usually you'll start getting that warmth. It starts melting the snow even faster. So this particular moon has some pretty interesting experiences with it. You also have, depending on where you're at in the country, the name the goose or crow moon, which the Canadian geese tend to be heading north around this time. So if you love hearing their squawking through the sky, you might notice them showing up in this upcoming week. It might be a little bit early for some of them, but this moon was a signaler that those animals were starting to move around again. And the one thing I do want to point out with this full moon is we're not just looking at the worm full moon for March. We're also looking at the blood moon, which is a full lunar eclipse. So that'll be fun, right? This is going to be a rather long eclipse, actually. It's going to take about an hour to complete from the time it starts to the time it ends. I believe it said 48 or 58 minutes long, so it's going to be a longer eclipse. And according to some sources, this will be the last full lunar eclipse for the Northern Hemisphere until around 2028. So over a year and a half, you won't have another full lunar eclipse here. And so that's kind of interesting. And for those in the North American continent, especially from the Midwest further west, you'll get a full lunar eclipse. You can actually see the entire thing. This moon will turn red. And I've had that experience before. It's pretty intense because it's usually white, maybe a little hint of blue. During this night, it literally turns a red shade. It's crazy. But if you're in the North, Pacific Northwest, in particular Alaska, Hawaii, you're going to be able to see this quite well as well. And that's where you'll actually see it start to fade over, and it just turns literally red. It's not like the sun blacking out. It literally just turns the color of blood, so it's a little intense when you think about that. For those in the Rockies, the Rocky Mountains from Canada all the way to south, the time frame will start around 4:04, 4:05 a.m. And if you're in Pacific, I didn't look at the other time zones, so I do apologize. But the Pacific time zone, it starts around 3 in the morning. If you've never seen a full lunar eclipse, it's worth getting up just to observe it. And like I said, it's just something that you don't usually see, and it's not something you think about. We talk about the solar eclipses all the time, but the lunar, the colors are different, and it's just it's an eerie feeling to see it change color like that. And so what else can we learn? Yeah, the moon looks cool. It reminds us to plant our crops and are getting plans for the future. Full moons are always good for manifestation. The eclipses are all about revealing secrets and understanding our darker side or shadow. But what else is going on with this one? Because this one is not as simple as you would think. This full moon is going to be in Virgo, which is opposite of the sun in Pisces. So you've got an interesting dynamic here between Earth. Make sure I'm reading my cards right. Excuse me, Earth and water. So you've got a little bit of a dynamic there. At least they're friendly with each other, even when they're opposed. This is a very interesting dynamic with the planets, because it's not just the two energies of Pisces and Virgo. We're also looking at this eclipse, which is basically, we'll say it's going to nudge or could be shoving you completely out of your comfort zone, forcing you to improve. And there's a lot of places you might be seeing improvement driven towards. But the primary areas are the places where Virgo or Pisces are the rulers. So the hearth, the home, organization being stable, Virgo. Pisces, spirituality, emotions, creations, creative abilities. So that's your Pisces energy. And the trick with these two, especially since I think this is like the 6th or 7th line that they're going to be in, they've got several of these connections going on. Fix the things, find your new balance, learn your lesson so you don't repeat the pattern, and then move on. That's like the big energy that's coming in here. Does not mean you're going to do all of that at once. This is what's being offered to you, so you'll see what, we'll get into that a little bit more. Because it sounds really intense when you look at it from that perspective, but it's really a gentle aspect. We're not looking at harsh attacks here. Pisces is very deep. It's the heart of the ocean, the depths of consciousness and awareness. So Pisces, with that ruler of Neptune, is going to help bring things to the surface, that mysterious energy, or the stuff that you just are kind of hiding or you're not ready to deal with. Pisces is going to be the one that kind of helps you figure out what's your next course of action. Not always on a conscious level, but a subconscious level. So when you're working with this Pisces solar energy, it's going to be the dominant energy, which is can be a little intense. If you've ever been around a Pisces when they're in their full authority, you don't move against that. That is literally, you're dealing with a wall of the ocean, and that's going to take dominance over everything. So be aware that if something's being brought to the surface in emotions, secrets, something that you've been working with trying to ignore in your shadow, and it's coming forward, it might be time to work on that. Because Pisces is not going to take no for an answer. You might say there's other spots where you're like, but I should be working on this, and Pisces is like, that's not your problem right now. That means that there's something higher coming in saying, no, that is not what you're working on. That's not what you're ready to work on. Conscious mind saying, this looks like fun. Pisces is like, you don't realize that that's just the toe of the monster. Leave that alone for now. So you want to work with the things that come to the front first. It's not going digging. Allow the universe to work with you. God's source is going to show you what's there to be dealt with. And you might not have anything in the moment. Great. Keep moving forward, because you don't want to wait around for something to get you. But with Virgo and Pisces at odds, this is a really strong call out to find your balance again. Work and personal life. If you're a workaholic, some of us have that problem, you have to figure out how to cut some time out to have a personal life. If you are someone who is really focused on the mundane, and I know I need to get to the spiritual stuff, I need to set that time aside to meditate or go to church or read my Bible or read a text, you need to do that. If that's what's coming up right now, then that's where you need to make the adjustment. Re-find your balance. If it's, you're hyper social, but your spouse, your kids, your puppy, whatever it is in your personal life is like, where are you? You're always out doing something. Time to fix that. This is that time to look into your needs, your wants, your desires. Examine the areas where you're lacking and where you have excess. How can you bring those two back into a point where you're more in balance with yourself and you're more calm? This is what Virgo is going to bring in for you. So you find those balances, even if it's only for a minute or two, but that's the goal. Pisces is like, listen, you've got a lot of energy, you have a lot of emotion boiling up around here, there's so many things happening, and Pisces is trying to be like, work on this, you're not doing that, clear that out, and showing you what's next. Virgo's over here trying to like put the pieces together, fit the blocks in, and you're trying to work with those energies. And they're not going to force you. That's the thing. We have free will of choice. We can do what we want to do. But when something starts to show up repeatedly in your life where this is an area you need to work on, pause. Figure out what's going on. Why are you so against, is one of the words, this subject? If you are hyper working and you don't want to deal with your personal life, why? What's going on? Sit down with a journal. And I mean literally write this down on paper so you have the act of writing, not typing, so you can see it. Write it down. Why do I feel this way? That way you get more clear as you're doing it. And when you're working with Pisces, you can't tell a secret. You're going to be very honest with yourself because Pisces won't let you lie. They might be the most secretive sign on the planet, but they also know when you're not being honest and they're going to call you out on it. So this energy is not a time for trying to hide or keep secrets. Pisces will know. So with the sun in Pisces, with this full moon energy, you don't want to play games. You want to be honest with yourself. So you really want to sit down and write these things down. And Virgo is saying, what's not working in your physical world? That's like, you work too much, the home life's falling apart, too social, not social enough, like where do things need to go there? And Pisces is saying, check your emotions and check your spirit. Those two areas, especially if you're a man, are really hard to look at because, ew, emotions, icky. And spirituality, God's up there, that's cool. But there's more to it than that. And so when we understand how Pisces and Virgo are coming together, we're seeing two different aspects of energy, the mundane with the spiritual or magical or whatever term you want to use there. And what they're calling you out to do in this time period is to figure out your new balance. Examine what's working and what's not working in your life. And that might be something simple, and that might be something complex. you're not doing a lot of action right now. That's the part that I want to emphasize. You want to look at things, examine them. As I said earlier with the journaling, writing things down, I want you to get out a piece of paper. You don't have to do it right now. You can go back to the movie. But I want you to get out a piece of paper. And I want you to write down a couple of these questions. You can write down them all, fill it in, essay it out, however you want. But the first one is, how can I enjoy life more? That's a Virgo question and a Pisces question. Because if work's becoming mundane and you're bored, you come home, you're bored, nothing's not feeling enjoyment anymore, how can I enjoy life more? Question 1. Question 2. How can I mix order, the mundane, with the energy of joy? Think about it. Don't just write these questions down and be like, I'll do it later. Sit down under the light of this full moon and actually get quiet. Ask God's source, ask your guides and guardians, how can I, show me the truth of these statements so you can be clear with yourself. It's not really action right now, you're understanding. So, some of the things that I've seen, can you clean your house while playing music? At least you're bringing something fun into something that is extremely boring. Or if you're doing spring cleaning, which no one likes to do, we all have to do it, we don't want to. How about joining forces with a friend? You help them with their house, they help you with yours. It's things like that where you can start having fun with the mundane, but it allows you to step into that higher frequency. And how do these energies show up for you? How does joy show up for you? How does the mundane show up for you? How does spirituality show up for you? Those are areas where you can ask further questions. And if you can, change a chore into a fun ritual and see if it doesn't become a habit. Where you're cleaning house, okay, add a little sage essential oil to your mop water. And as you're cleaning the house, you're saging out the negative energy. You can do the same thing with your vacuum. On the filter, you put a drop or two of essential oils. And as you're vacuuming up the negative and you're putting out the positive. Things like that change a mundane task into a spiritual experience. And it can be really simple like that, literally. For years I had the vacuum still runs, the belt doesn't work, but I have a vacuum that I always had bells tied to because the sound of a bell disperses negative energy. And when I first started using it, I was in a living situation that was unpleasant. There was always a little bit of hostility, a little bit of tension. So when I would vacuum, I was clearing out, because as you vacuum, you're moving it forward and back. The little bell was just ringing away, and it would clear out the negative energy that was in the area. And it felt better after I vacuumed. I'd vacuum 3 times a week just to make that feel better. So it's little things like that that you can have a lot of fun with. And other people will be like, why do you have that? I like bells. You don't have to tell them why you're doing it. You can just have fun with the experience. Excuse me. Allergies are being fun right now. But it's little things like that that can change a simple task into a spiritual experience. The other areas that come up under this particular alignment of energies are the relationships. And that's all relationships. They're all coming under the microscope. The universe is working behind the scenes to help you become the best version of you, but also the best version of your relationship. So it's not just, well, I have to do this on my own. No, if you're in a relationship, that's 2 becomes 1. You both are going to be under your own microscopes. And this is not a time to be like, well, he needs to or she needs. No. What can we do to be improving? How can we make better choices, do better things? It's a time to examine these things as a joint union. If you're single, then it's looking in the mirror going, what can I do different? How can I be better? What is going on in my life that maybe I need to make some adjustments? And I want you to understand, during eclipses, some things will be hidden. The moon gets hidden, and your shadow self, will be coming to the surface a little bit easier. So this can be a little bit intense, but you don't want to take all the stuff that you're feeling exclusively at face value. Just be aware of that. You might be being called to examine something specific or everything, but here's the trick. You're being shown a pixel, little dinky piece in a puzzle. You're not seeing the whole picture here. So you want to examine what you're looking at, what's being brought forward, examine that under this full moon. But step back, view the full picture. You're looking at the whole screen. You're not just looking at a pixel down here in the corner. So when you get done examining your pixel, step back from it and look at the bigger picture. Okay, that little piece over there we can fix. We can do something with it. And by doing that, what's the ripple effect outwards going to be? So you want to make sure that you are taking the time under this full moon to really examine what's being brought forward. Don't struggle, don't fight this, because that's not what the moon does. The moon is not aggressive. The sun is, but the moon's not. The moon is going to bring something to you. It's going to open up a door. You're going to see something. Thought will pop into your head while you're watching this video and being like, oh, I should probably cut back on the carbs. I should probably, I got that gift membership for the gym and I've never activated it. Things like that, whatever pops forward, probably where your best starting point is. Figure out what's going on there. Doesn't mean you're going to solve the problem today, but examine it. We're researching here. Eclipse energy, just like with the sun, is very unpredictable. And that's one of the reasons that I say, especially with a lunar eclipse, you want to observe. Because the moon is the ruler of water, one of the rulers of water, also the rulers of emotions and the subconscious. The subconscious talks in symbols. You're not going to be making drastic changes because you saw a kumquat and a pyramid in your vision quest. Well, what does that mean? Your subconscious talks in symbols. So you don't want to make a lot of action. You want to figure out where the areas are and then allow the reality brought into physical world manifest. Then you can see what is coming next. You're observing now, action is later. And so you're researching. I'm going to repeat that because that is the energy of a lunar eclipse in the full moon area. And there's a lot of energy swirling around up there in this same eclipse pattern. And there's several planets floating, I lost my place, sorry, in the mysterious waters of Pisces, in the depths of mysterious energies. And we have things like Mercury, the planet of communication, which also goes retrograde during this time period. So it's all over the place, and it is not going to help with speaking clearly. Well, let's put it that way. And you might notice that technology is really frustrating. And I know from my personal experience in the last 5 days or so, the shadow of Mercury retrograde has been very active. Every computer that I've been near has not wanted to work. And other people are noticing the same problem. It's just technology is having a moment. But that's where Mercury is. But Mercury is in the shadow of Pisces with this full moon energy going into a retrograde. So Mercury doesn't know whether it's coming or going. So you might feel your communication skills are really whack for this next couple of days. That's okay. You're aware of it now. Take the time to think things through. If you start to stumble over your words, if you start having that hyperventilating, I can't slow down, I'm talking too fast, pause, bring your energy down, because Mercury is going to be doing this number for a minute. Once things settle down after this eclipse, Mercury will go back to being its normal chaos, but especially retrograde, but then you won't be in the middle of all the rest of this. You also have Mars in Pisces, so you've got the aggression of fire tying into the depth of water, and these two are going to hit at war. But the thing is Mars is actually stimulating Pisces' creativity. It's actually warming that cold heart and allowing it to beat with more positive, uplifting emotions. And we're going from Pisces into Aries here shortly, and Aries is ruled by Mars. So you have a very interesting dynamic where they're friends, but they're enemies at the same time, but they're enemies who fight to strengthen each other. Again, looking at balance, we're still playing that card game. So Mars is in play here. We also have Jupiter, who is the traditional ruler of Pisces, but is now the secondary ruler of Pisces because Neptune rules Pisces. And with Jupiter, you have the more jovial father figure. Saturn's the stern disciplinarian. Jupiter's the one like, you got a B on your test, let's go get ice cream. So you've got that kind of energy coming in, and Jupiter is also about travel, journeying, and exploration, which actually is a good thing with this kind of lunar eclipse energy. It gives you the option to explore deeper, but knowing that you're safe and protected, because Jupiter's like, this is just a ride. Observe the show. You're watching a movie. You can push pause when you need to. It's not a big deal. So you have at least a lot of support in this Pisces energy. And of course we have the sun, because we're in Pisces season. So you've got a little bit of chaos going on. Things can be a little bit muddled to your conscious mind, especially if you fall under the dominion of a water sign, because the Pisces is the basically king poobah of the water. And when Pisces is having a moment, other water signs are going to feel the same moment. So good luck. But there's a couple of different things that are going to happen, because you have Mercury and Mars and Jupiter and the sun. Fire, movement, air, energy, constant states of action and experience, but they're all in Pisces, which is all emotions and mystery and mystic stuff. And then you also have the moon, which is a lunar or a water-based energy, in Virgo, so Earth. You might have one of two different actions for the 3 days of this lunar eclipse cycle. So you're either going to be exhausted or so hyperactive that you're not really sleeping, and you're a little bit worried, but you're not tired, so you've got like this weird dynamic going on. And what I've been researching with this is you're going to have a couple of different results coming out, I should say. You're either going to be in the most clear-headed space when all of this settles down and we come out of this eclipse period, and you're going to be able to see everything way clearer than normal. Or you might come out of it and be really clear over here and have a complete block on this other section. Like you can poke at that door all day long and it's just going to be a wall. So don't judge harshly on how you come out of this eclipse cycle, because it's not as simple as a lunar eclipse. It's beautiful. I highly recommend going out in that lunar energy if you want to get up at that time of the day. But I would highly recommend it because they're fun to watch. The big takeaways to this chaos we're discussing here is give your mind and body the things that it needs for this 3-day window of the full moon. Its apex is on the morning of the 3rd, so it starts on the 2nd, which is Monday, and it ends on the 4th, which is Wednesday. So you've got those 3 days that are going to be a little more intense than normal. If you are tired, rest a bit, nourish your body, figure out what you need, more vegetables, more protein, whatever it is. Hydrate's a big one. If you happen to be really super hyper, like you can't sleep at night, go to the gym, go for a walk, do some yoga in the house, read a book, start that craft you've been trying to get to at some point. Find the thing that your body needs to balance itself and work with that energy. The one other thing that I just want to emphasize with this chaos that's going to be boiling over for the next few days, be gentle with yourself. It's going to be a lot, but the only person you're at war with is yourself, literally. So you don't need to be aggressive. You don't have to go digging through your emotional nonsense. What brings up, work on that. Write it down. Figure out what's going on there. Ask yourself the questions. Grab a piece of paper. Journal it out. If you're like me, you'll need like a small book, because once you start, you can't stop. But you want to be honest with yourself as well. Don't be harsh, but also don't try to sugarcoat it. I'm a little distracted. Okay, actually, I'm really distracted right now. There's a lot of things going on. I can't shut my brain off. Be truthful with what you're writing down. That way, when you read it back, you're like, so that might be the area I need to work on. So how do I get better focus? Meditation's a good way. focusing on one project and completing it at a time. Multitasking is great, but there's times when you need to rein it in. And this is the energy that's being offered to you under this full moon, is finding your balance, first of all, and then resetting habits that no longer serve you. You're not going to do it all in 1 month, in 1 3-day period. It's not what I'm saying. But you want to look and examine where the things that need to be worked on, and then that gives you an entire moon cycle to start putting into practice the changes. Start putting into practice the shifts in awareness so that you get more clear on what it is you're actually building. And again, if you are a gardener or someone who likes to plant things, use this time to plant stuff that is long term. Plant your windowsill herb garden that you're going to keep for the next, 2 years. Plant your stuff that you're going to plant outside later on. Use this full moon as a way to jumpstart future projects. That's the energy that's coming up here. So with that, I will let you guys and gals go. Keep your eyes out. There will be a spring equinox video as well coming down the line. But with that, let me know your thoughts, feelings, and impressions. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun jazz, and I'll see you in the next video.